Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Motivational speaker, the comeback coach, and goal crusher Joe Rivera brings you inspiring leaders, incredible stories, and valuable lessons on how you can change, grow, and reforge your life. Now, here's your host, Joe Rivera.
What's up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Reforge Your Life Show. I'm your host, Joe Rivera, and here at the Reforge Your Life Show, we like to show you that the comeback story is more than possible. And today, I'm honored and hyped to bring to my show a guest that I consider a friend, a mentor. She's a public speaking, storytelling coach, Star Babatunde. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Joe. Thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you, man. Blessed. Thank you for coming through.
Yes.
And Star, I've heard your story a few times, and it's impactful. And there's no way that I could possibly tell it as good as you can. Only you could tell your story that good. So I'd love for you to share with the audience your story and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Well, you know what? It was late on a Tuesday night, right? And the phone rings. I'm home with my mom, and a friend of the family calls up. And she asked if, can you get Star to California for an audition by Friday, right? By Wednesday, I was on a plane to California. And I was going there to audition for the lead role in a TV show, a CBS television series. I had been acting for my entire life, right? But this is my big break. This is the big break. I'm 16 years old. I love what I do. And I'm going out here for this audition. Now, what I didn't know, Joe, is that the network had already given the role to Janet Jackson. You know, that Janet Jackson, right? They already gave the role to her, but when I auditioned, they changed their mind and they gave it to me. So I get to say that I beat out Janet Jackson for the lead role of a TV show. And it should have been, this was a chance of a lifetime, right? This was a perfect opportunity. This was the fuel for my acting career. But instead of a dream, it turned into a nightmare. There was so much hostility and tension in my household. And, you know, being a teenager and being an actress, I assumed that everything revolved around me. So I assumed that all the problems we were having were my fault because I was standing in the spotlight, because I was getting all the attention. And so at the tender age of 18, I decided to give it all up, to let it go, to walk away from this thing that I loved to do, to walk away from acting. And that is how the story begins. So I do that. And you know what, Joe, I'm having a pretty good life. Right? I got married. I got a couple of kids. Everything is beautiful. It's beautiful. But I have this nagging feeling inside that something's not right. You know what I mean? You ever have that feeling where nothing is wrong, but something's not right? And that's where I was. It just, something wasn't right, but I couldn't figure out what it was. And I wasn't willing to do anything about it. I mean, I had a good life. You know, I'm working at a prestigious law firm in downtown Los Angeles. We got cars, we got houses, kids in private school. Look, I'm not messing that up. But my mentor once said that if you are too afraid to make a move in your life, life will move on you. And Joe, I got to tell you, in the span of a year, life moved on me. In the span of a year, my father died. My job went away. My marriage fell apart. All the things that were my anchors, as unhappy as I might have been, or as torn as I might have been, I had these solid things in my life, and then they were gone. And I felt myself like I was untethered, like I was blowing in the wind. I was sad, I was depressed. I just didn't know what to do with myself. And during that time, a friend of mine invited me to one of these positive motivational seminars. You know the type. You probably go to them all the time, Joe. I bet you do. You know, where they got a bunch of speakers and they come and they say great things and make you feel good about yourself, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't interested. I wasn't trying to go to that. Look, I was having a pity party and I was good with it. But I went anyway. And I'm so glad I did, because I remember I'm sitting in the audience and I'm watching these amazing speakers go across the stage. And I suddenly remembered that I used to be on the stage. And I remembered how much joy, how much love, how much I loved being on the stage. And I decided in that moment that I was coming back, right? That I was coming back, but this time as a speaker and a trainer. And yeah, that's what I did. I ended up working with Les Brown. I traveled with him internationally. I ran his speaker training program. I went on to be the #1 trainer in a national training company in sales and in performance. And now I'm vice president of programs with Andy Henriquez, where we work with our students to help them leverage the power of their stories, the power of their voices, so that they get more income, more impact, and more influence on every stage they take every time they speak. That's my story, brother.
I love it, love it, love it, love it. Thank you for sharing that. And there's a lot to unpack there. You know, the challenges that you went through to get to where you are today. You know, I want the audience to realize, like, you know, it ain't just a straight line to success. You know, there's bumps in the road that we go through to get to where we are, and that those bumps in the road, that's where the growth is. You know, and you know, I wanna start from, first off, you give up on one of your dreams that you feels, you know, at that moment, young in life. I'm sure you felt like that was what you were meant to do, the acting. Got this big role from Janet Jackson, and then all of a sudden, you give up on that, and you decide, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm gonna go into law, and you become successful at being a lawyer, right?
Well, you're right. And the thing is, Joe, I gave up something that I loved. I gave up being who I was authentically, right? And the thing about that is that we all do it.
Yeah.
All of us do that at some point to some degree. And I'm going to say women do it probably more often than any, right? We feel that we're not going to be accepted as we are, or that it is our job somehow to mediate things, to make things comfortable for everyone else. And if we have to sacrifice a little bit of who we are, then we do that. And unfortunately, sometimes we take it too far.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I just sacrificed who I was to make other people happy.
So
And it didn't work because the other people still weren't happy.
it never works, right?
It never works.
No, people pleasing never works. It'll come back to bite you in the ass every single
time.
You know, and you spoke about also, so you gave up on your dream, you became a lawyer, and then you lose a pillar in your life with your father.
Yep.
I know what loss feels like. I've been there. I lost my mom. We only get one parent of each, and I get how that could be challenging. What are some of the challenges that you went through losing that pillar? You know, before you went to this motivational event. I know you didn't want to go. What were some of the things you were going through in those moments, those challenges?
Well, you know, my challenge was threefold. When I tell the story, I talk about those three challenges. But there was another challenge that I don't really talk about. So the three that I talk about, I lost my job, right? Job went away. My marriage was falling apart, and that was hard. And losing my dad was hard. But the thing that I don't often talk about is my son. When my son was 5 years old, he was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It's a muscle disorder that causes the muscles in young boys to deteriorate as they grow older. It is a relentless, debilitating disease for which there is no cure. So we're dealing with this all of these years. And during that time where my life fell apart, my son walked for the very last time. We got him a wheelchair that year because the doctor said, you need to get this boy a wheelchair because he can't walk much longer. And so all of that was happening at the same time. What did that feel like? It felt like it was the worst. It was the worst. Everything was falling apart. It made me feel like God had abandoned me. That it was just, I felt abandoned. I felt lost. I felt betrayed. And, there's always the thought, I always had the thought, why is my son being punished? Why is he being punished? Why does he have to go through that? And I wrestled with a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of uncomfortable feelings during that time. Just everything was falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's no wonder you felt like everything's falling apart, right? You lost your job, you lost your marriage, you lost your father, and then your son is going through this challenge in his life. And the one of the hardest things about being a parent is when our children go through something challenging, like what your son went through, or when they're fighting for their life in some kind of way. And there's nothing we could do about it but be there and be supportive for them. That's challenging in itself, right?
Yeah.
And what did you do at that moment when you're going through all these challenges and to not give up? Because there's a lot of people, Star, who are in that situation who might just say, "Hey, you know what? Fuck it, man. I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to throw my hands up. I'm going to go to drugs and alcohol. I'm going to just bury myself in depression. I'm going to, there's so many different ways that people handle it that they don't come back from." So what was it in you that was like, you know what? I got to keep pushing forward. I can't let this shit beat me.
So what was it? So all of these things are happening. I'm moving out of the marital house with the kids, got a different house, it's doing all the things that need to be done because you just keep going. You just keep getting up in the morning and you keep going it, and I mean, there were definitely times where I was depressed, where I would get up in the morning, take the kids to school and come back home and get back in bed. And then I'd wake up in time to pick them up from school. And I'd do whatever I had to do during all that time. 8 o'clock bedtime, I'm back in bed. I had a lot of time like this, but here's the deal, Joe. What was in me? I don't know what was in me. But I tell you this, I had this dream. And I don't know if it was a dream or a daydream. I don't know what it was, but I had this image in my head. So you've got to understand, when my son was diagnosed, God and I were no longer on speaking terms. I was done. So I go through all this. I'm in one of the hardest times of my life. I have this vision of opening a door and walking into a house and the lights are dim and it's a familiar place. It feels like home. And I look over and I see in a corner in this one of those great big armchairs with like the reading light hanging over it. And sitting in that chair is God. And of course, I'm surprised to see him there. And he just looks at me with nothing but love and open arms. And he says, I'm so glad you're here. As if I had just left for a minute. You know what I mean? There was no animosity. There was no where you been. There was nothing but love. And what I realized was that in all that time that I was not talking to God, that God was still there for me, just waiting for me, sitting in that armchair, just waiting for me to get to a point to realize that he was there for me and had always been there for me. So you asked me, what was it in me that got me through that? I think it was God. There you go.
And it sounds like it was, and it's amazing how no matter what the challenge is, and we could think that we're in this by ourselves, but we're not by ourselves.
Yeah.
Just like that footprint prayer, he's carrying us through the turmoil, through all the trauma and getting us to that other side. We might not realize it, but he's right there. And the minute you start putting your hand out, he's right there to grab it, no matter what. No matter how long you got disconnected and lost your way, he's right there to bring you right back on the right path to help guide you towards where you're supposed to go again. Man, that's beautiful, Star. And that was a beautiful way of seeing it, man. How you had that vision, and he's sitting in that chair, and he's just waiting for you to see that he's there for you the whole time, man. That is just beautifully beautiful vision. Really.
So I believe that was the foundation that helped me rise again. You know. And I was listening to something. Denzel Washington was doing some motivational gospel thing he was doing, and he said something that just kind of shook me. He said that just because you're in a hard place doesn't mean you're in the wrong place. Just because you're in a hard place doesn't mean you're in the wrong place. And during that time where everything fell apart, I was in a hard place. I was in a very hard place. But from that place, I heard things that I had not heard in years. I saw things. I felt things. Because I was in that hard place, my heart was open to find God again. Because I was in a hard place, I went to that seminar, right? And it changed my life. If I had not been in the hard place, I don't think I would have heard. I don't think I would have felt. I don't think I would have seen the same things. And those were the things that I needed for my comeback.
I believe what you just said wholeheartedly, because I believe that, our past doesn't define us. It helps catapult us into the future. And I also believe that that hard place that we're in, it's the opposite of being in the wrong place. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. A lot of people ask me, like, do I regret substance abuse and what I went through? No, I don't. When I say thank you to substance abuse for making me the man that I am today, I say thank you for substance abuse for bringing me closer to God and giving me the relationship I have with him today. I say thank you to substance abuse for giving me the opportunity to go and create impact, because I've turned that addiction upside down on its head and used it towards my advantage. And it sounds like, you were able to use your hard place to be able to catapult you to where you are today so that you could go and give back in the way that you give back, because, you know, if you didn't go through that hard time, maybe, you know, you wouldn't be giving back the way you're giving back now.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious because there's a lot, you know, that like trauma that you went through, and it happened pretty like simultaneously. It sounds like, if I'm correct, right? So when you're going through that trauma, you know, there's beliefs that start popping up in your head, and you know that could be terrorizing for someone. What are some of those beliefs that you were challenged with and that you had to crack through that belief system to get to where you are?
Well, you know, there was, of course, the belief that God is mad at me. There was that belief. God must be mad at me to put me through all of this. I must be punished, you know. But then I had my vision, and so that belief wasn't there. And the belief that God was with me and had always been with me, that gave me a new perspective. You know, I could walk with my chest out just a little bit because I knew that I was loved and that I was protected. And so that was a shift in my belief system, you know, believing that I had nothing to offer, just believing that I had nothing to offer. And I know I'm in a law firm. I'm a lawyer, right? I've got my corner office in the 44th floor to ceiling windows. Look at that. But you know, I still had this inner feeling of that I didn't deserve it, that I wasn't worthy, you know. And the belief, the shift in belief was that I am full of talent, that God poured so much talent into me that all I have to do is be open to it, right? I was able to get do different training. Like I said, I started working with Les Brown, who trained me into being a motivational speaker, right? And in doing that, I just found more and more of my gifts, right? And a lot of the gifts had been put there. I mean, I knew that they had been put there a long time ago, right? So the belief that I do have something to give, I do have talent, you know, and I think the greatest shift was when I started coaching and I started helping, when I started training, I could see the impact that I made in the audience. And that was the greatest thing, right? To be a trainer and to see the light bulbs go off, to know that when I train, when I teach, that someone else's life is being improved. I believe the greatest gift any of us has is to be a positive influence in someone else's life. And as I, you know, got better at being a trainer and a speaker, I realized that's what I was doing. I was being a positive impact in other people's lives. That realization, that shift in my mindset did a lot for me.
Yeah, man. Power number one of believing in yourself is so important. Because if you don't believe in yourself, then nobody's going to believe. And it's vital for your success, and also to realize that, you know, you were given a story, and that story doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the people out there that you could create impact. God gave you that story so that you could go out there and share that story and be able to be of service to people. And that's where you were able to find purpose at. And, you know, it's so important. It's funny to me how, like, all the entrepreneurs, all the speakers that I come across and coaches and myself included, like, you know, when it comes to that purpose and that drive, it all has to do with being of service and giving the gift that we were given back. Man, that's so powerful. Powerfully said how you mentioned that, because I think that's the gift that God keeps giving. And that's why God was like, you know what? I'm not going to let you give up on yourself. I got bigger plans for you. You could try to give up. You could give up your hope on me, but you ain't going to really, it ain't going to last long. I'm going to wait till you come back and I'm going to welcome you with open arms. And then we're going to go out there and create impact together. And once we're in alignment again.
Exactly. Like I think I heard Andy Henriquez says that God keeps calling.
Mm-hmm.
He keeps calling. He just keeps calling, right?
Sure
You just got to figure out when you're going to answer the call.
Yeah, that's right. When you're going to answer that bell, man, because it's going to keep ringing.
Exactly. And Oprah Winfrey says that first God will knock gently and then whisper, and they might even yell at you. And then he just takes a brick and hits you upside the head so that you figure it out. How about if I take everything away from you? Maybe then you'll be able to hear me. And apparently that's what I needed.
Yeah.
But I very much feel like all of this leads me to my purpose. Public speaking, storytelling coach. And on the outside, I help people do better presentations. I help people, do better briefings and meetings and lead meetings. And I help people do that. But I know that what I am helping people do really is to unmute their voices that have been muted either by society or by someone, or worse yet, they've been muted by themselves. People mute their voices. They dim their lights. And that is really what I do. I help them unmute their voices. I help them illuminate the light so that they can be the stars that they were born to be. And the only reason I do it with such passion is because I have been there. I have been the one who muted her voice and dimmed her light.
Love it. It's amazing how it comes full circle, right? The thing that you struggle with the most is the thing that you go and you help people change their life with and create impact with.
Absolutely.
Star, I'm curious. So this belief system that we crack through, when we crack through it, and it's a work in progress, it's an ongoing process. It never ends, right? The belief system continues to, limited beliefs continue to come up in our life. But learning how to control them and realize that they don't control you, you control them is a secret to success. But I believe that when we do that and we crack through that belief system, there's a value system that gets uncovered. And obviously spirituality is one of those core values for you. You speak highly on that. What are some other core values that you utilize to kind of go back to when challenges do come up in your life?
That is just very interesting because very recently I went through a process of redefining my top 10 values. And on the top of that list is gratitude. It's gratitude because there's always an opportunity to give thanks. Because as hard as I might think it is, there's so much to be grateful for. And not just the big things, life, God, health, family, job. Everyone says that, but every little thing, there's a reason that there's an opportunity to be grateful. When it rains, I am grateful. And when the sun is shining, I am grateful. When I wake up in the morning and the water turns on, I am grateful. When I go into the cabinet and complain that there's nothing to eat, but it's full of food, I am grateful. I am grateful for everything that God gives me, everything that is there. And I think that is a core value. Here's what I tell people all the time. If you're in a bad mood, start thinking about gratitude, because you can't be grateful and grumpy at the same time.
Right.
You can't do that. And I've got to say, encouragement is one of my core values, because I want to be the person who encourages others. I believe as a coach, my job is to see the best parts of you and to hold up a mirror so that you can see them, right? And they call me a gold digger. because I'm always digging around in people's thoughts and their hearts to get the gold, because I know it's there.
Love it.
I know it's there, and I get to pull it out. I get to pull out things in people they don't even know they can do. They don't even know of their talents and ability. They don't know. And I get to pull it out and then hold up the mirror to go, look at you.
Mm.
You know, I don't put any of that in there. That's in you, but I get to pull it out. Encouragement. That is one of my core values. Significance is another one of my core values. Although I don't think that this is so much for other people. It's a core value for me. I like to know that I'm making an impact. I like to know that I'm having a positive impact in the lives of others. Now, it helps other people for sure, but it gives me joy. And that's what it gives me joy. Effectiveness. Again, it's knowing that I can help people get things done, and that I can get things done. So that is another core value of mine. So
Love it, man. You're dropping gems over here. That holding the mirror up so somebody could see their fullest potential is so powerful. I mean, that's dropping bombs, girl. I love it. Star, tell the audience, you know, what you're doing now. I mean, shared a little bit about it, what you're doing now, and where they could find you.
well, what I'm doing. What I'm doing now is, like I said, I'm vice president of programs with Andy Henriquez and the $1 Million Storyteller Mastermind. And what we do is we help people leverage the power of their thoughts, the power of their stories, the power of their voices, to elevate their businesses, to get more influence, more income, more impact on every stage they take, every time they teach, every time they speak. So that is a lot of what I do. I also I work with women, specifically women, in something called Amplify Your Voice. Amplify Your Voice, and the purpose there is that there are a lot of things that we are holding on to. Women. There are a lot of women who were in the place that I was in. Everything is looking good, but something is missing. They can't quite get to that next level. And it's because they've got a story going on in their minds and their hearts that is holding them back. And so I like to work with them on identifying and redefining that story so that they can amplify their voices. So they can amplify their voices and their message and their impact. And so I have a webinar coming up called Amplify Your Voice with Star. Amplify Your Voice with Star.com. So that is one thing that you can go to connect with me. But you can also go to star@starbabatoon.com, and my name is right there in the corner. So it's starbabatoon.com, star@starbabatoon.com. And it's the same thing on Facebook, IG, and all the things. It's Star Babatoon.
Yeah, well, that's going to be in the show notes, y'all. And man, I've had the honor to work with Star. I'm part of the MDS Mastermind. MDS, baby. It's an amazing community. We got some amazing mentors, and I've been blessed to be able to work with her. If y'all haven't worked with Star, definitely check out her webinar, man. She kicks ass, man, and she shows results. Star, something that I always ask my guest, number one, is what does the word purpose mean to you?
What does the word purpose mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that our purpose is the path, the plan that is set before us, that is set inside of us by a higher power, that we are obligated to pursue in order to be the person that we were born to be. That is purpose. we get distracted along the way, and that is for sure. But sometimes even that distraction brings us to our purpose. But you gotta be open to it. You gotta be open to it and not avoid it. But that's what I think. I think it is the plan and the path that is instilled in us before we were even born.
I love that. I believe that it was building us before we were born also. And I think it's important for people to realize, the audience to realize that sometimes, that distraction is part of the journey. It's supposed to be there. It helps us grow. It keeps us going stronger into our purpose. Beautifully said, sir. And when you hear the word reforge, what comes to mind?
Hard times. So for something to be forged, I believe that it takes pressure and it takes heat. And I think we go through that in our lives. And sometimes that pressure, that heat turns us into something that we're not, like it's a stage. We're not supposed to be there for long, but we needed to get there. So to reforge means to then take that lump of mass and put it under different heat with direction in order to create what we are supposed to be ultimately. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man, dropping bombs again, girl. Of course it makes sense. Absolutely. Beautifully said. And Star, there's somebody out there right now listening to the episode, and they're looking to make a comeback in their life, their business, their health, their finances, their relationship, whatever it is. They're looking to reforge their life. And they don't have the tools to do that. They don't know where to start. What's one hack that you could share with them, with somebody that's looking to reforge their life?
I think the most important hack is to get around the right people. To get around the right people that are going to put you in the right situation. When I was during my dark time and my friend invited me to that seminar, if I had a different kind of friend, we may have had a pity party. We may have had a misery loves company party. We could have gone down an entirely different road. But because I had the right people around me, we went to a positive place. And so I think that having the right people around you is the most important thing. Find like-minded people. And maybe you don't want to find like-minded people if your mind is in a certain place. You know what I'm saying? But find people who are doing things that you wish you could do, that you want to do, where you look at them and go, yes, that's the kind of person I want to be. And you need to hang out with those people. You need to find a community of people who are looking up. I have a star point. Star points are short motivational messages designed to uplift and empower, right? And they're called star points because my name is Star and I'm about to make a point. All right. So my star point is don't talk to chickens. Don't talk to chickens, because here's the deal about chickens. Chickens are always looking down. And they are pick, looking down. That's where they look because that's what they live. If you want to achieve more, if you want to move yourself from wherever you are, you gotta be looking up. So you gotta be soaring with eagles, because eagles don't look down at the ground. They look out. They look up and they look out. And when you associate with eagles, you become an eagle. But if you keep talking to the chickens, you're going to stay on the ground. There you have it.
Oh man, that's more than just a point, girl. That's so important, to surround yourself with people who are going where you want to go in life. People who have already achieved what you want to achieve, because that's how you're going to grow. Hanging out with people who are not where you want to go in life, that's not going to bring you anywhere but backwards, man. I mean, my family had a saying. We growing up in a Puerto Rican household. It was Dime con quién te andas y te digo quién eres. Tell me who you walk with, and I'm going to tell you who you are. Man, thank you for sharing that, because that's so important. So, Star, the last question I want to ask you: what's something the audience does not know about you, and that I don't know about you either, that you enjoy doing for fun?
Oh, you probably know this. Star loves to dance. I love to dance. I love to dance. I love to dance. And so I have been studying hand dancing probably for about 7 years. So that's something that you don't know. And hand dancing is it's a DC thing. It's a Washington DC area thing. It's like salsa, but it's to R&B music. And I love to dance. And when I was in it for about 5 years, I started learning the lead role so that I can lead and follow in hand dancing.
Okay, yeah.
People don't know that, but I can do both. And the reason why I wanted to do both, because there's always more women than there are men in the dance classes. And I would have to wait. And so I decided I don't have to wait. I can dance both sides. So I'm always dancing. I get to dance the entire time. There you have it.
Now I know who brought the dancing to MDS, huh?
I brought the dancing to MDS. Andy wasn't doing that.
Oh, man. Star, thank you so much for coming through. I mean, I knew when I met you that the energy was awesome, and that I wanted to continue working with you in some way. And I'm so grateful to have been able to bring you onto the platform and work together, because your energy, I knew you were going to bring it up here, but you went above that and brought it up here. So, and I'm not surprised. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you coming through.
You are very welcome, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. And I am honored to be a part of your program, because I'm honored by who you are, what you have accomplished, and what you're doing with it.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And for all the listeners and viewers out there, thank y'all for checking it out. And don't forget, LFSS, like, follow, subscribe, and most importantly, share, because there's somebody out there today that's not watching the episode, and they're looking to make their comebacks. They don't have the tools to be able to do that. And you sharing this episode could save their life and save their journey. So please don't forget to share. Stay productive, stay profitable, and stay blessed, y'all. Thank you.
You've been listening to Reforge Your Life with your host, Joe Rivera. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Joe Rivera and how he can help you or your organization reforge your life and regain your place at the top, head on over to withjoerivera.com and follow Joe on all social platforms. The Reforge Your Life podcast was produced by Thrive Loud Productions. Thanks for listening.